Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to England once again and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a good few times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, a few different styles, but I would say this brewery are known mainly for their different kinds of IPAs, and we've had quite a few different kinds on the channel over the years. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today, from what I understand, is a new addition to their core range. It is supposed to be a really nice one, so hopefully this is another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. I'm certainly looking forward to having a go at it. So for this review then, we are going to head down to Leeds in Yorkshire in the north of England, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Northern Monk. So this particular beer is called Transient. It comes in at 7% ABV, and this one is another New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, I got this beer in my local Morrison's. I think it was £3.50, which translates to about €4, 40 Swedish kroner, and I guess that would mean about $4.50 American for those of you watching over there, just so that those of you in different parts of the world have a little bit of a price reference. But yeah, we've had some great beers from Northern Monk over the years, so when I saw this one and realised it was one that I hadn't had before, I thought we should have a go at it. So let's crack on then and see how we go. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Northern Monk before, and we will hopefully add some more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you, and that's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, but a bit more regularly now that I've been spending a little bit of time in the motherland of Scotland. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about Northern Monk once again then. So Northern Monk, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Leeds, and the company was founded back in 2013 by Russell Bissett. So he started brewing in his mum's basement and then launched the company officially at the Sparrow Beer Cafe in Bradford. In August of 2014, they moved into the old flax store in the city of Leeds at Marshall's Mill, and they've basically been working to build up the brewery and create new beers ever since. So they say that they like to pay homage to the old monastic brewing in England that went on for centuries but is largely overlooked these days. Of course, when anyone thinks of monastic brewing, you think of the Belgian Trappist breweries, but yeah, that did go on in England as well. But at the brewery, they also have the refectory as well, which is essentially their bar and restaurant. They also do a lot of beers through their Patrons project these days, where they team up with other breweries for collaboration brews and also local restaurants. And I believe most of their new releases actually come through that Patrons project rather than being new members of the kind of core range, if you like. The core range editions these days are a lot more kind of a lot fewer and far between, I guess we could say. Mainly the new and experimental beers come through the Patrons project. But their main brewing operations take place in the refectory on Sydenham Road in Leeds, and this has a total capacity of 24,000 hectolitres. But recently they launched a new project called the OFS project, which is where they're brewing small batch beers in the original brewery at the old flax store. And I think there was a few interesting sort of Keller lagers and stuff coming out of that the last time that I looked. I need to try and get a few of those beers to review for you at some point. But one of the problems I have with getting English beer is, of course, getting a bunch of things from different breweries from the one place. I don't want to make lots of little orders actually, because you want stuff from different breweries when you're doing a YouTube channel. But these days they've also got another refectory in Manchester, which is supposed to be really nice, and the current head brewer at the brewery is Adam Lyle, and they've produced around 270 different beers as of November 2021, according to Untappd. So yeah, that is all I can really tell you about Northern Monk for the moment. As I say, a very well respected English brewery, and one that you definitely need to try if you haven't done so already. So yeah, that's it. If you want to learn more about this brewery, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. And I'm hoping that at some point next year I can do an England tour and go and see my fellow beer tubers down in England and do some out and about videos with some of them. That would be really awesome to do. But yeah, for the moment, that is everything. Let's get on and actually have a look at this beer itself. So this one, as I mentioned to you earlier, comes in at 7% ABV. There you can see the Northern Monk there, or the Monk 2. But yeah, this one, 7% ABV, a hazy New England, whatever you want to call it, double dry hopped IPA. This one apparently is hopped with Strata and Citra. Strata is a relatively new hop. It gives you a lot of kind of passion fruit and things, but also quite a kind of, also quite a big floral component and a kind of almost strawberry-like flavour. Actually, it can be very high in alpha acid, about up to 18% alpha acid. Citra we know very well. 14% alpha acid, big mangoey flavours, and also quite a big lemony, limey, zesty kind of quality as well. Both of those hops are of course American, but plain silver top on the can there. It does tell you a little bit on the back about this one, and yeah, apparently it just says the support of friends, family, a £5,000 gift from a grandparent. We've come a long way. So yeah, £5,000 gift was what started off Northern Monk Brewery. That is pretty cool. But yeah, it says on the back here, find your path as fog descends, step into the haze and the mist of time. So yeah, they also seem to put some of their patrons on the back of the can here, which is pretty cool. So apparently Ben Nelson was on 50/50, which is an old game show that you might have seen as a child if you were living in Scotland or England or whatever. But yeah, 440ml can, this one, as I mentioned earlier, £3.50 at my local Morrison's. So let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Curious to see what this has in store for us. The Transient 7% New England Hazy IPA. There we go. I'm trying to remember what the name of the last core beer was that I had from Northern Monk, but that was also a really solid one actually. But we've got most of the beer out and into the glass now. I think we can just have a look at this. So, yeah, this looks pretty good, I have to say. So before the head disappears, you can see that this beer has poured with, I would say, a 2/3 finger of a frothy, kind of perfect white head. Actually, you can see there the bubbles on this one look very, very nice actually. Just look at that. Love this 4K camera. But yeah, when you shine the light through this, it's got a lovely, very bright mango yellow colour to it. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But I mean, overall, it looks pretty nice. And this is kind of what you would expect appearance-wise for a New England IPA these days. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on, one, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining the EBC rating of the colour. The length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put in can also affect that, but normally when it comes to New England IPAs, you don't really need to care about these specific factors. But the level of haze on this beer is kind of what you would expect for a 7%er as well. It's not the haziest that you're going to come across, but it's still got quite a good level of haze in it. But yeah, the level of haze depends on the yeasty character, the wheaty notes, the wheaty part as well, and also the oats. And that can vary from brewery to brewery and even recipe to recipe, so there's no real rule about that, I guess you could say. But you can see when I put my hand behind it, that gives you an idea about the opacity or opaqueness of this beer. But yeah, for a New England IPA, pretty much looks as you would expect. So let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this. I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Yeah, it's again pretty much what you would expect from this style. So yeah, first off, just a kind of general first impression of the beer, I would say that it's one of these more kind of bready and soft and smooth New England IPAs. It's got a lovely little fruity juiciness to it, but a lovely kind of big smooth and bready character to it at the same time. So on the fruity side of things as well, it's got a little bit of zip to it, which is kind of interesting too, and I'm very curious to see how that's going to translate into the flavour. But yeah, the green component is really nice and smooth in this as well. So as I've explained to you in other reviews, I personally think there's about 6 different directions a New England IPA can go in, and quite often it will display quite a few of these characteristics, every individual one. So you can be a little bit more leaning towards the farmhousey, yeasty side of things. You can be a little bit more rye leaning and grainy, white bread, a little bit wheaty and bitey, oaty and creamy, barley malt leaning and bready, or a little bit more kind of brown sugary and sweet, if you like. So yeah, quite often they will display multiple characteristics and there'll be a cross between them. But this one for me, to me it smells like a mix of kind of barley malt leaning and bready, but also kind of oaty as well actually. But yeah, I think this is going to be very, very nice on the malt base. So the backbone of this one for sure is a little bit of a kind of bread crust, absolutely a nice kind of straight up bread crust, but you have some nice big kind of soft white bready characters in there. I think there is a bit of wheat in this just kind of thickening it out, to be honest with you. And I would say that the wheat in this beer really is very smooth. Sometimes it can be a little bit sort of, a little bit more kind of bitey and spicy and zippy and things like that. But no, for me, the wheat is quite smooth and just, thickening out the beer, to be quite honest with you. So yeah, I do like how that goes together in this particular beer. But aroma-wise, this one is pretty nice. So malty side of things is really good. I would say that on top of that kind of white bready character, you do get some nice kind of smoothness and you do get a little bit of dryness out of the oaty character as well. One of the ways that you can usually tell whether a New England IPA is fairly fresh or a bit older is how smooth the oats are, and sometimes you can smell the dryness and things like that from them through the aroma. You can just smell that they smell a little bit more kind of powdery and dry, but you can smell a mix of kind of smoothness and a little bit of dryness out of this one as well, and also a little bit of sweetness too. So I think this one's pretty much in it's kind of around its sort of prime, perhaps, in a sense, or it's been on the shelf maybe about 6 weeks, something like that. So it's not too bad. But yeah, on the sweet side of things, I think there is a little bit of that kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type note coming out of this beer. You can quite often get just a little bit of brown sugar out of these beers. I get 1 or 2 little McVitie's digestive biscuit notes, but I would stress that those are quite minimal. They take a back seat to the more kind of butterscotchy, butter candy type thing for sure. But aroma wise, I think this beer is pretty damn nice actually from that perspective. Let's just put the rest of it in and see, because maybe sometimes you will get a wee bit more yeasty character out of these beers if you put the rest of it in. So we'll just have a look at that and see. It actually does smell, you get a bit more of the oats, and the oats come across as even smoother at this point, which is kind of interesting when you put the rest of it in. So yeah, lovely kind of big, smooth, oaty, creamy character with this one. I really like that about this beer for sure. Aroma-wise, malty side of things in this is really nice. But I think we've said everything we need to say about the malty side of the beer. Let's look at the hoppy side of things. So back of the nose, you can definitely get a little bit of earthiness out of this one. But again, I would say that when it comes to the green component, I would stress that really takes a back seat to other things. So, a little bit of earthiness in there. Some nice big kind of floral aromatic sort of things for sure. There is a nice little bit of floral aromaticity to the beer. It's actually quite bright, but it's interesting for me because it still comes across as quite smooth and it's not overly pungent in a sense. So you've got this lovely bright floral aromaticity to the beer, but it really doesn't give you it really doesn't give you so much of a kind of pungent floral aromaticity. It's just really nice and bright for sure. It's interesting. I think it actually said on the hoppy side of this beer that it was dry hopped to 20 grams per litre with Strata and Citra, but they were using some kind of hop oil in the wort boil, like an incognito hop oil or something like that. So that's really interesting actually. A method I'll need to look into. Maybe I can ask Harry of Blue Nose Beer Reviews about that particular method. But you also get a nice little bit of grassiness out of this one. And I would say the grassiness again is quite smooth and quite bright. Not like a wet, freshly cut grass, but quite a nice, smooth, bright grassiness to the beer. So I like how that goes together in this one. So green component is pretty nice. On the fruity side of things then, I would say this beer has, I think it's again, it's really just very kind of smooth and juicy for me at the back of the nose, or the back of the fruity side of things. There is a little bit of a kind of pungent passion fruit, but I get quite a lot of a juicy mango out of this one, and that I think is going to be the Citra that's giving you that. But you can definitely smell the kind of red fruity notes from the Strata as well. Strata, if I remember rightly, I'm trying to remember. I know that's Talus. I was going to say I thought Strata was related to Sabro, but no, that's Talus. Strata and Talus seem to be the two big new hops that are floating around at the moment. But yeah, the aroma on this one, lovely juicy kind of mango in there, a little bit of kind of more pungent passion fruit backing up, but you can smell that nice little juicy strawberry kind of red fruity character from the Strata coming out of this one. But yeah, aroma wise, this is a very, very nice smelling beer, I have to say. So yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of it before you get stuck in. I think that's everything we really need to say about it, to be honest. So we can have a taste of this one. This one is the Transient, a 7% New England Hazy Double Dry Hopped IPA from Northern Monk down in Leeds in Yorkshire in England. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, and cheers. Yeah, that's pretty solid. It really is pretty damn solid once again. And you know, these days there's so many New England IPAs out there that you can't, you know, to be quite honest, you can't really ask for much more than a solid one from one of the breweries who are really well respected in the style. So thumbs up to Northern Monk for this one. So, it's in pretty good condition as well, I'll add that. So, where do we start with it? First impression of this is that, as I said, it is pretty damn solid. It's a little bit thicker in its malt base than I thought it was going to be from the aroma. You can feel a little bit of the thickness in there. Green component has a wee bit more pungency to it, but it has got the nice big kind of juicy fruity characters that you would expect of the style. So yeah, I like how this goes together in this one, for how it goes together in this one for sure. So yeah, so let's go through this one as we always do and just break it down. Quite enjoying this actually. I feel quite relaxed at the moment, as you can maybe tell from this video. But yeah, malty side of the beer then. So the back, the middle third of your palate, as you go right across that, you get this nice little bit of a kind of bread crust. You get a little bit of that kind of bread crusty sort of backbone to the beer. On top of that, of course, you get the nice big kind of white bready. You get the nice big sort of white bready characters coming out of the beer, which I really enjoy. And it feels, again, that white bready character really feels quite thick in there. But yeah, nice kind of bread crusty backbone to the beer. We'll focus on the middle third of your palate just now. So you've got the bread crusty notes, the kind of thicker white bread on top of it. You can feel the sort of pale malt, the kind of pale malty, base malty, barley malt, white bready note there. On top of that, you can feel a slightly thicker wheaty layer as well, which I really enjoy. And then as you go down the kind of middle, line of your as you go down the kind of middle line of the middle third of your tongue, you have a nice kind of oaty, creamy note to the beer. The oats are quite interesting in this one because in the middle of your palate they feel quite concentrated, but then as you move further out towards the edge of your palate, you can definitely feel they're a little bit sort of drier, and there is a wee touch of sweetness to the oaty character in this one as well. But I would say that overall this is not the sweetest of the malty sweetest of New England IPAs that you're going to come across. So again, that's quite interesting for sure. So on top of the kind of oaty thing down the middle line of your tongue, there is a wee circle there where you've got a nice little bit of that kind of Werther's original kind of butter candy, butterscotchy thing. But again, I would say that circle is pretty small. You have only got a little tiny bit of sweetness to this beer in a sense for me. In terms of the New England IPA, this one is a lot more like the kind of things that you would get back in 2015, 2016, and the sweeter ones that I've become accustomed to a little bit more recently. Now I'm wondering if by maybe this is the trend maybe this is what's happening with New England IPAs. They maybe are going back to a more kind of bready IPA rather than a more kind of sweet one, if that makes sense. Maybe that's the trend of what's going on in England and Scotland, because I've noticed that with quite a few of the New Englands that I've had in recent times. So I maybe need to keep that in mind. But yeah, flavour wise, I think this one is pretty damn nice from that perspective. But it reminds me of the more old school things that I had back in Sweden. The Amazing Haze from Stigbergets, the Narangi from OO, and the new Sweden IPA from Opigårds and things like this. So yeah, that's worth keeping in mind with this beer. But again, it's pretty solid actually. So yeah, I think that's everything we really need to say about the middle third of your palate. So border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of bready build up in there. So yeah, like I say, nice little bit of bready build up. The backbone of the back third of your palate again is that sort of grainy bread crusty sort of thing, and the graininess gets a little bit more intense the further back on your palate that you go. You can feel on top of that the nice kind of you can feel the sort of nice white bready character coming out of this beer, which again I really do quite like. So yeah, nice kind of white bready notes coming out of this one, and they just feel a little bit sort of thicker in a sense. And then you can feel at the very back of that, you do get a little bit more of that kind of wheaty bitiness in there. You can feel one or two of the kind of oaty dry elements just creeping into that back third of your palate, and then on top of all of that, you get the nice kind of yeasty element coming out of this one, which is interesting. So the yeasty character just sits on top of the malty base on that back third of your palate. So let's look at the yeasty flavour in this one actually. So yeah, on the on that back third of your palate, I would say there is a nice, the yeasty side of the beer. It's like a very kind of thick, just dense, doughy, bready kind of thing. There's one or two little woody elements to it, maybe a little bit of an almost very slightly spicy character, very slightly kind of peppery spice, or some of that, or a grainy spice. But yeah, you can feel that nice yeasty character just sitting on top of the wheaty components on the back third of your palate. So as I usually say, on the back third of your palate, the flavour is a little bit taller, but as you come further forward, it just condenses down a little bit, and then the flavours just kind of squash together a little bit more. The flavours just kind of squashed together a little bit more and condensed down into the middle third of your palate. But yeah, I like how this one, I do like how this one goes about its business. So it gets a big, a sort of thumbs up, a thumbs up from me in that sense. So yeah, I think that does work out pretty nicely for me. So on the on the hoppy side of things, I think we've said everything we need to about the malty and yeasty side of the beer. In the back corners of your palate, there is definitely a little bit of earthiness to this one. As you come further forward, it does get a little bit herbal. Then as you push towards the kind of front corners of the palate, it's got a little bit more of a floral aromaticity. But again, the floral aromaticity for me isn't overly pungent, to be quite honest with you. It doesn't strike me as being too pungent. But then round the front curve of the palate, you've got a little bit of that lighter kind of grassy sort of thing to this beer as well, which I really like. So yeah, you've got a nice little bit, as I said, you've got a nice little bit of that kind of grassiness around the front edge of the palate. And I would say that the further you go into the aftertaste, it actually does develop just a wee touch of zestiness, and it is in the flavour more like a wet, freshly cut grass that you get off of this one, which is kind of interesting. So the floral notes aren't too big, but I think the grassy notes take the lead in the green component. But yeah, it works. So let's focus on the front third of your palate then. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, you get a nice little bit of a bready build up there. You can feel that sort of bread crusty element. Then the base of that front third of your palate is a more you do get a little bit of the bread crust underneath, but it's like a smooth white bready character, and then on top of that you get that nice oily bubble where those kind of juicy fruity esters just just roll their way out. So yeah, on the back half of that front third of your palate, I think it's the Citra that really shows its head a little bit more. There is a wee touch of that pungenty passion fruit, but the back half of that front third of your palate is more about the kind of big juicy mangoes, to be honest with you. It's a lot of big juicy mango character that you get out of that, and I think it works really nicely. But then as you go further forward into the front half of that front third of your tongue, just as you reach the border region, there's maybe potentially a little tiny bit of apricot or something like this, but as you go into the front half of that front third of your tongue, I think it's like a kind of oily, very light strawberry character that you get out of this one, and it actually works pretty well. I do like how that goes together in this beer, so a thumbs up to the fruity side of things for Northern Monk in this case. So yeah, it's quite a straight shooting beer in terms of its fruity character, but like I say, it works. You can't ask for much more than that. So yeah, an interesting, quite a bready but quite oily, fruity New England IPA for me, this one. But I don't think there's anything else we can really say about the flavour of this beer, to be honest with you. Maybe you get a little tiny bit of like a gooseberry melony note at the very kind of front tip of your tongue, just when the fruits meet the grass, if that makes sense. So I like that. I do like that about this beer. So yeah, on the mouthfeel then, to round off the review, this beer is pretty mid-bodied. Yeah, carbonation. This beer is mid-bodied. Carbonation is, pretty smooth actually. It's got a nice little bit of kind of cleanliness to it, I would say. Yeah, definitely has a nice little bit of cleanliness to it for sure. But I think that's fair. Yeah, a little bit of cleanliness to it for sure. But it does have a very slight touch of oiliness and slickness to it, this beer, which I do enjoy. I do like a little bit of that in a New England IPA. In terms of IBUs and things, I think this is a fairly standard 30 IBU one. This, I think it's 20, 25, probably 30 IBUs, to be honest. The malt base is very smooth and kind of bready. Like I said earlier, there's a little touch of sweetness to it, but not overly much. And I think the more that you go further into the aftertaste with it, I think the green component starts to get a little bit more earthy, to be honest with you. But yeah, the fruity side of the beer is nicely balanced. It's an oily strawberry and a kind of juicy mango that sort of dominate the flavour, and I'd say the fruity character is a little bit more oily rather than anything else. But overall, it's another solid New England IPA from Northern Monk for me, and you wouldn't expect anything less of these guys. They know what they're doing with this style. This is an addition to their core range, so it's not the kind of most out there and punchy beer that you're going to get from Northern Monk, but it's a very kind of solid addition, if you like. So yeah, definitely worth picking up and having a go at it, and it's a good kind of go-to. It's available in local Morrisons and things like that, so why not? But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. So yeah, this is the Transient, a 7% New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, double dry hopped IPA from Northern Monk Brewing Company in Leeds in Yorkshire in England. Nice to return to these guys, and I'm sure we'll review more beers from them at some point in the future. But thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out theirs. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Northern Monk Brewing Company. And I will catch you guys on the next review. Check out this one, the Transient. Find it in your local Morrison's shop here in Scotland or down in England and Wales and stuff like this. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.